Check, 1, 2, check, 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 check. Hello everyone and welcome. Let's see what we got here. All right, we are streaming live. It is Friday night, Friday, 6 o'clock p.m. and I'm at Somerville Media Center, Union Square, Somerville. Just trying to figure some stuff out. So hopefully this is working. Working? Oh yes, it is. It's on. Hey! Oh, you're okay. It's recording. All right. So well, I'm doing the show tonight by myself, but no need to worry, because I've got plenty to talk about. Welcome to Fallon's Daily Toast, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I don't know where you are in the world, but wherever you are, I hope you're standing up to the oppressors, because they are just trying to exploit everywhere they can. Cool. It's good to be here. I don't have a guest on tonight's show, but I do have these really great sunglasses. Just so you know. And look at this camera angle. What? All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fallon's Daily Toast. On tonight's show, you are going to listen to me read. You are also going to, check out my face with these really new shades. I'm going to touch a little bit upon what I did on Wednesday. It was the GREENTOWN Labs grand opening event, and hundreds of people from all around the world packed this historic building in Union Square, newly renovated but historic. And there were some pretty cool keynote speakers. You know, Mayor Joseph Curtatone. There was Governor Charlie Baker, Lieutenant Governor. You know, a bunch of other CEOs from this organization and that organization and corporation. But from my personal experience, having gone into that place and moved around and seen the wet labs and the different clean tech startups, it was really inspiring. So many, young, brilliant minds coming together to figure clean tech and figure out how to best move forward in the crisis that we're experiencing with fossil fuels. We've hit peak oil points, folks, at home tuning in. We hit that peak oil, so got to figure out alternative methods of extracting energy and utilizing and holding on to and storing energy. And funny thing is that a great many of the sponsors and investors are big oil companies like Shell and BP, because they too are aware of their declining, popularity. And they should invest all the money because they've done all the damage. So I'm happy to have GREENTOWN Labs in our backyard. There's a pretty incredible group of just like clean tech, innovative people, men and women working on cool stuff. I do have a video, but I didn't set it up, so I'm not gonna share it. But what I am gonna do for you today is read aloud. Yeah, that's right. Read Aloud Friday with Fallon. Here, let's see if we can zoom in. We're going to do a little special zoom in. So this is just to take have a little sort of cap analysis of the experience on Wednesday, May 9th at GREENTOWN Labs. There was the grand opening, and GREENTOWN Labs moved into its new global center for clean tech innovation, and the 60,000 square foot, 100-year-old retrofitted building has expanded the incubator into a 3-facility campus, which provides its members with prototyping lab space, a wet lab, a machine shop, office space for more than 450 entrepreneurs, a 500-person event space, and a variety of flexible membership options, including a new ecosystem co-working space. It was an occasion to celebrate, and I was there to cover it. And I did share, if you want to go to my YouTube channel, Fallon's Daily Toast, I shared a little clip of just some of the interior, some of the lab space tour, and then Mayor Joseph Curtatone talking about how special it was that this was all happening, and sort of some forward goals, you know, with summer vision and the 14-point plan and what have you. So you can check that out. The music I'm really I'm psyched about. McKay Beats and Xenojam. I used their music. And yeah, Lieutenant Governor Ken Polito, CEO of Greentown Labs, Dr. Emily Reichert. It was a nice event. The food was delicious, and the space is really beautiful. Open, lots of like natural light, and the exposed piping and the lighting. Everything was just done so well. So I look forward to seeing what incubators thrive there. And I was going to show you this, but I guess I can still show you this. Let's take a tour. It says visit our members. And so it shows you, I don't know if you can see, let me see if I can zoom in. I mean, I know I can zoom in, but how gracefully can I do it is the question here. Zooming. Yes, so here we go. So you can see here all of the different vendors that were, all of the different vendors that were set up. See, I got a little tour to walk around, and each, you know, there was someone there, representative, that talked about, you know, the different technologies that they were working on, and this is like the big open event space right here, and the, you know, pretty cool with like a deck. There is a roof deck somewhere over here, and there's other lab spaces, and this was sort of where I think they had other lab space and just all sorts of creative spaces and what have you. Let me zoom out here. Oh, I'm not zooming in. Hold on. Bear with me, folks. All right. Yes, thank you. Live television. All right. So I guess we can talk a little bit about some of the members really quick before I move on to reading this book. Some of the members. Blue Sky Energy makes highly advanced charge controllers for the off-grid solar market. And let's see who else. Altieros combines proven technology with flight control innovations that enable cost-effective autonomous deployment of tethered airborne platforms. Applications for Altieros products include telecommunications, power generation, and technology-enabled agricultural services. See, Apollo Wind Technologies, reducing peak energy demand for homes and businesses worldwide. Dynamo Micropower. Dynamo produces a heat and power solution for upstream oil and gas, delivering its unique value proposition through synthesis of a gas turbine and hybrid energy storage technologies. See what else we have here. Fairwaves. Fairwaves makes rural mobile coverage profitable. They've built a unique technology that significantly lowers the cost of deploying and operating mobile networks in rural regions. Halo, using compact, high-output wind turbines. Halo's mission is to advance the adoption of wind energy for the on-site generation of reliable, low-cost, and clean electricity. Proper Pipe is an innovation house dedicated to improving global water, oil, and gas supply systems. There's just like such a plethora of incredible members over there. It really is pretty inspiring, and it was just, I wish I could have had so much time like being able to talk to each of the members directly, and maybe I will get an opportunity to do such a thing, because I'd really like to find out all about these neat, clean, innovative technologies. Anyway, so thank you all for tuning in. It's Friday, and before I begin reading Radical Man, A Process of Psychosocial Development by Charles Hamden Turner, I am going to talk about an upcoming event that's happening on June 10th. It's going to be here at SMC, and it's the first annual telethon. And there'll be, I believe I've shared it on the Fallon's Daily Toast Facebook page. If you have access to that social media platform, go to Fallon's Daily Toast Facebook page, and there should be an application. If you're a performer, whatever, comedian, you want to have something to say, we're starting this at 10 in the morning and it's going through to 10 at night, and we're looking for people to say something, to just play music or to recite poetry, whatever it is that you do, you know, be hard boil an egg really well, I don't know, you know, just come along and sign the paperwork, fill out the application, go find it at Fallon's Daily Toast Facebook page, or you can go directly to somervillemedia.org, and I know that it's a very easy interface. There'll be a little like, hello, telethon, sign up, because we'd love to see you there. We need people to perform. It's a lot of time to fill on live television, folks. 10 to 10. So we're just looking to have fun, to raise awareness on how important our public access station is, how much of an asset it is to the community, and it really touches on all these like hyper-local events, like, you know, Greentown Labs, Channel 5, Channel 7 were there, but are they gonna follow up? Are they gonna do like an in-depth, you know, intimate, personal kind of story, and with a great deal more pizzazz? No, they're not. It's gonna be quick, and you know. So yeah, public access television is important, and we need your support. Access centers all around the state and country need your support. So if ever you're looking to contribute or want to contribute, you know, money, resources, even volunteering your time, definitely get in touch with us or any one of the dozens and dozens of public access television centers and media centers all around the state. So that's cool. All right. And what else is coming up that I wanted to touch on? I think that's it for now. Do you like Many Shades? Oh, right, yes. Okay, I wanted to make mention of this, which is very important, and I have on me a folder full of, this is just a pamphlet to show, not only to describe and to mention, you know, the importance of the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party, but also to show you, you know, the institutions for which the movement has built, and also the organizations that have been built. And so this I'm going to be going around Union Square with, because the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party is coming up in October, and they are putting together a souvenir book. And so people, you know, businesses and individuals can purchase ad space, half pages, whole pages, quarter pages, you know, just little salutes and business card sized, but you can do that. And if you want to do that, you can message me directly and say, I'm interested in this, and I'm interested to know a little bit more about this. And I'll just read before I begin reading from Radical Man. So be a part of celebrating the African People's Socialist Party 7th Congress in St. Louis, Missouri, October 6th through the 18th, October 6th through the 13th, 2018. Africans will be coming together from cities across the US, Europe, the Caribbean, and Africa to attend this historic event that gives leadership to our struggle for reparations and liberation for African people everywhere. Promote your business or make a personal salute in a large full-color souvenir book distributed to hundreds of participants from this area and internationally. Purchase a sponsorship package that includes a souvenir book ad, tickets to the October 6th banquet and Freedom Ball, t-shirts, and your promotional banner displayed at the Congress. Advertisers and sponsors will be acknowledged throughout the 7-day Congress. Many of the conference participants are involved with community organizing and outreach work in their cities, and may be looking to utilize services such as yours for future projects. So, as I said, if you're interested, if you're a local business and you really want to be a part of this and get your ad or just contribute and buy, you know, one of these sponsorship packages, which will really help to get people here from all around the world, then be in touch with me. And I can, or you can just go directly to purchase ads online at apspcongress.org. That's apspcongress.org/souvenirbook. So I just wanted to make that clear to everyone. And I also really wanted to zoom in on this incredible page too. I'm going to, let's see, the Uhuru Movement on the Move, our institutions for independent economic development. So let me just zoom in on this here. Look at that. Look at all that Black Power Blueprint, Uhuru Furniture, the Uhuru Market, and then on the back, it's just all the institutions, you know, it's like Impedum, and Black is Back, and Uhuru, and African People's Education and Defense Fund. It's just also inspiring. So that's should put you in a good mood. Wow, it's only been 15 minutes. Whoa, all right. Lots of reading. Did I have anything else that I wanted to mention? No, I didn't. Okay. So this book was gifted to me by a friend, and I've done, you know, I've read a few chapters, and it's, you know, a bunch of theory, but kind of cool. So we're gonna read from some of this, and again, this is Radical Man: The Process of Psychosocial Development. More than theory, you know, Charles Turner is an expatriate Englishman, graduated from Trinity College and Cambridge University in 1958, was radicalized by the cultural shock of attending Harvard Business School's MBA program. Since then, he's taught at the Laboratory of Community Psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School and at the Kennedy Institute, and he's currently a fellow of Cambridge Institute. But this is, I don't think he's currently a fellow right now. But this book will undoubtedly raise a storm of controversy and will be bitterly attacked by many of the more orthodox social scientists. So what chapter was I going to read from? Ah, yes. Not the radical conservative dimensions in American politics. That wasn't the one. It was crypto something or other. The crypto conservatism of technological thinking. So for those of you that know kind of what's happening here in the Somerville, Massachusetts area, Porchfest is usually tomorrow, Saturday, but because of a forecast upcoming with climate's going to be a little bit just inclement weather, we'll say, it's been postponed to Sunday. So just so you know, for those of you that were intending to come to Porchfest on Saturday, it's on Sunday. So just check that out. And tomorrow, though, is the opening day of the farmers market, and so come on out. I know that a couple of my comrades are going to be out there with literature and all sorts of stuff, probably some of what I've just showed you with the cool purchase a souvenir book ad. But yeah, it's going to be a day no matter what. There's no stopping the farmers market, rain nor shine. People come with their umbrellas and their raincoats and their, just come on out, enjoy a rainy day with us, really. Take a look at some of these trees, because they're not going to be here much longer. Those trees are going to be, with construction happening, this whole square is going to be transformed into, big, tall, 22-story buildings, and, but these trees are going. Such a shame, I know. Like, we already have a bit of an issue with greenery here in the city, the lack thereof. We're going to take more trees out? All right. So, here we go. So, this chapter is the crypto-conservatism of technological thinking. And it begins. 1 second. Oh, wait, no, before it begins. Oh, sorry, hold on just a minute here. I wanted to read to you an article first before I got into this. It's an important article. It was, let's see here. It was written by African National Women's Organization, and it is titled, "CPS is a Joke, African Children Murdered by White Adoptive Parents." So CPS is similar to that of like Child Protective Services. In Massachusetts, it's called Department of Children and Family. It was at one point called Department of Social Services. You know, they basically go through, you know, some young child, several young children die, and they have to go through this whole process of kind of, I guess, rebranding, firing people, making a new look for things. And so, yeah, CPS, Child and Protective Services, is a joke. African children murdered by white adoptive parents. So this is it was an article, and I'm going to read it aloud to you. By now, you've probably heard the tragic story of the 6 African children who were murdered by their adoptive white female parents when the women drove their car off a cliff into the sea. The 2 white murderers were Sarah and Jennifer Hart, the adoptive parents to Devonte Abigail. Devonte was 15, Abigail 14, Hannah 16, Jeremiah 14, Marcus 19, and Sierra 12. The women, along with the bodies of the 4 out of the 6 children, were found floating in the water near the car, while the other 3 children remain missing. Among the missing children is Devonte Hart. Devonte Hart was the young boy, if you remember, photographed tearfully hugging a police officer in the aftermath of Mike Brown's murder and the acquittal of Officer Darren Wilson. The officer Devonte was hugging, the officer that Devonte, the young boy, was hugging was Officer Sergeant Brett Barnum. And Barnum was the source of controversy when he came out in support of Darren Wilson on Facebook. The more details that come out about this incident, the more it becomes clear that this is another example of how Child Protective Services doesn't care about the welfare of African children. CPS has been called before on the hearse. The children were vocal about the fact that they were starved and abused, yet nothing was done. In the weeks leading up to the murders, the neighbors had contacted Child Protective Services because Devonte and his siblings had taken to begging them for food. And on one occasion, Devonte's sister, Hannah, showed up at the neighbor's house with missing teeth, claiming she was being abused. The Harts had CPS cases opened on them in 3 different states, Minnesota, Oregon, and California, but the children remained in their care, and they were allowed to move from state to state freely. In 2011, Sarah Hart pled guilty to domestic assault when teachers found bruises on the girl's body. She was given a slap on the wrist and 1-year probation and a 90-day jail sentence. This is completely unethical and a testament to the carelessness with which the lives of African children are treated. African mothers are over-criminalized by CPS, DHS, DCF. So these are all the names of these agencies that are imposing all these flawed philosophies, terrorizing families, to be honest, terrorizing families. And despite proof of the abuse going on in that home, CPS did not remove these African children from their white abusers. Contrast this with the case Maisha Bright of Baltimore, an African mother whose children were removed in 2013 after false, unsubstantiated allegations of abuse were made. Maisha still does not have custody of her now teenage children, even though she has been fighting to get them back. The state, however, continues to keep them from her. Compare this also to mother Nina Ford of Baltimore, who lost custody of her child as she was struggling to make ends meet. While she did the best she could, the state deepened her crisis by blocking access to the programs that would have kept her child with her. In a twist, Nina was charged with felony kidnapping when she rescued a child from a dangerous situation while the child was still in custody of the CPS anointed caretaker. It is not uncommon for working-class Africans to be in situations like these and have their children taken for any small or unsubstantiated claim. It is also not uncommon for these kidnapped children to then be placed in abusive homes. Statistically, children are better off in their homes. Statistically, children are more likely to be physically abused when taken away from their families, according to Richard Wexler of the National Coalition for Child Protective Reform. Instead, children are shuffled around and, in some cases, ultimately end up dead or in far worse situations than if they were left with their families. African children make up more than 2/3 of the foster care population, despite the fact they make up less than 1/5 of the children in the United States. And I just have to repeat that again. So African children make up more than 2/5 of the foster care population, despite the fact they make up less than 1/5 of children in the United States. For example, in Chicago, the percentage of African children in foster care is 95%. In 2008, a young African girl from Ethiopia named Hannah was murdered by her white adoptive parents, Larry and Carl Williams. In this case, a child was stolen from Africa and then murdered because of the so-called, quote, biblical beliefs, unquote, of the Williams. This is kidnapping and it's genocide. Instead of providing help to poor working-class families so that they may effectively raise their children, the state villainizes them, arrests them, and kidnaps their children. In many cases, the parents and children are never reunited, effectively breaking up the household. Recently, here in Detroit, a mother who had just given birth was told falsely that if she did not take the Depo-Provera shot, she would not be allowed to take her newborn home. It goes without saying that newborns belong with their mothers. They need milk and they need to bond. All the African women I've mentioned were over-criminalized by the state and had their children taken from them, whereas the Harts, who portrayed the, quote, harmless, quote, end quote, liberal hippie white women lifestyle, were clearly a danger to these African children, and no one did anything to help them. Everyone failed them, including the system that purports to deal with the welfare of children. This is why the African National Women's Organization has started the Arrest CPS program campaign. That's cool. The Arrest CPS campaign. No longer can we sit by and allow the state to get a hold of our children. We are African mothers who charge DSS, CPS, and the family court system with the kidnapping and genocide of African working-class children. African mothers like Maisha Bright, whose children were removed for false substantiated allegations, and Samantha Johnson, who after trying desperately to get help to pay for expensive medication for her young daughter, ended up having her daughter removed from her home because she was seen as unfit to take care of her. This cannot stand. The state should not be able to remove children from loving homes only to be bounced around with no stability or being placed where they will be likely abused or killed. Devante is still missing and presumed to be dead. As a mother of an African boy, I mourn his death, but I also see it as a call to arms. We must fight for our children. Indeed, it does take a village to raise a child up. We need to rally and protect our children from the state. And you can find this article at anwouhuru.org, and that again is African National Women's Organization. And it's a very, very powerful article, and I'm just so grateful to be able to read it aloud to all of you. I think it's important that each of you know at home tuning in that every day children are targeted, families are targeted, especially families, black and indigenous and families, immigrant families are targeted by this agency that isn't a very old agency. I had a lawyer, Gregory Hession, on my show, and Gregory was the founder. He created massoutrage.org. He's been a family lawyer for several years, and he calls them just a sham. You know, they don't do very, they're not they don't do anything to help the family. In fact, they tear the family apart. It's they're getting a lot of money from the federal and state levels to do this, and the money is misappropriated. And all of these social workers are overwhelmed by their cases. One social worker, one man, one woman, has up to 40 families. That's a lot for one person to take on. You can't do it. The system should be completely overturned, and they should, keep families together, is what I'm saying. They shouldn't be tearing families apart. It's absurd and doesn't do anything to help anyone. So I'm just hoping that DCF, CPS, all of these agencies that have imposed flawed philosophies upon all these families pay back reparations, give children back to their families, Offer services that they want. Don't impose upon them what they don't want or need. You know, they ask, like, let them guide you. And sure, yes, I you know, there are plenty of instances where it's important a child be, you know, taken from the home because the parents are either unfit or just don't have the proper resources. But there's a line, you know, is it that the family doesn't have enough resources to take care of the child? In which case, provide those by paying reparations. There should be, especially for the African and indigenous and just like immigrant families that are coming here from war-torn areas that have been affected primarily because of us exploiting them with whatever, you know, just monoculture, agricultural kind of practices, and also just a myriad of awful things that are happening elsewhere in the world, causing people to flee and come here, and we should welcome them and make them feel comfortable. And yeah, so anyways, thank you for listening to that, and I will move on. Yes. So we have 30 minutes. But if you are interested in learning more about CPS, go to nwouhuru.org. You could also find more information that regarding stuff that's happening with CCF on massoutrage.com, and that again is Gregory Hession's site, and he's a lawyer. He's been a lawyer for 20 years. He helps families to get their children back. And there is an interview that I did with him up on Fallon's Daily Toast YouTube channel. You can look up Fallon's Daily Toast / Gregory Hession and find out more there. It's a big problem. It really is, and it's traumatizing and like ripping families apart left and right, and causing such a courthouses, family district courthouses, to be absolutely overloaded. You know, like to the point where it takes sometimes 4 and 6 months to even get in front of a judge to get your child back or your children back. Like, that is absurd and obscene and inhumane. And this is happening every day. And I do want to give a shout out and just salute to national bailout mothers, African mothers that are bailing out other African mothers who can't afford bail. How many people a day are stuck in cells, in cages, around the country and around the world because they can't afford bail for something like having a tail light out? Give me a break. That is unacceptable. That should not be happening. That needs to be overturned. So, you know, put pressure on your legislators, put pressure on your representatives, you know, mail letters, knock on doors, phone calls. This should not be happening. We need to start treating humans a lot better, you know, and the animals even. We need to start treating everyone, all life, a great deal better. I say a moratorium on like deforestation, on jailing and arresting, like give it a break. Have like some time off, you know, just enough with everything. Can everyone just like absorb a little bit of zen, huh? Take a little break, a little breather, stop it all. Leave everyone alone, pay reparations, you know, allow for there to be a dual and contending power so people can build their own economic development and have their own communities and not be, you know, just bothered by anyone. Everyone's always bothering everyone. Leave them alone. Leave everyone alone. You know, it generates, though, money, right? That's the biggest thing. That's why you don't see many, gosh, I just could get into it, but I'd rather have a panel discussion instead of me just ranting. I'd prefer not to rant, so I'm going to stop. So, chapter 10, the crypto-conservatism of technological thinking. We have already seen that much of the conservative opposition to psychosocial development is hidden behind symbols of nationalism, morality, spirituality, and commerce, and that economic appeals for thrift are often disguised attempts to inhibit the social conscience of the electorate. Which, by the way, let's take down the Electoral College. That's just, like, should have happened so many years ago. Let's just demolish and let it go away. I do love this voter on this rank choice voting is something I'm interested in. That will be on a future Fallon's Daily Toast. All right, so but there are far more modern and streamlined versions of crypto-conservatism. In this chapter, there is only space to discuss one major impediment to our political development. So serious that I believe it threatens the open society itself is the growth of strategic thinking and, quote, technotronic, unquote, futurology in a culture increasingly dominated by technical forms. We have been conditioned into believing that technology is neutral as to value and potentially useful for ends good or bad. The oldest cliché in Western movies has a nervous female exclaim, "This valley would be better if there were no guns and no killing." To which the hero replies, "Pardon me, ma'am, but a gun is as good or bad as the man who uses it." This argument overlooks the fact that men will attempt to solve problems and conflicts by the use of their most sophisticated and developed resources. Only now we are told that the decision to bomb North Vietnam was taken because this is what America was best equipped to do. Any culture that spends several thousand times as much on weapons acquisition as upon the psychology of negotiation and mutual understanding has already chosen to bomb and blast its way out of a dilemma. The first thing to notice about rapid technological development is that the most repressive persons and regimes are heartily in favor of it, along with the less repressive. Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini, whatever they feared about human freedom, were strong advocates of technological advance. The, quote, Gothic politicians, unquote, of the Deep South are Gothic only about people, not about new industry. The government of East Germany elaborately celebrates technology while freezing social forms. Persons identifying themselves as conservative ideologically and opposed to, quote, federal interference, unquote, will vote millions for the latest amendments, for space exploration and for road building. The federal government seems to lose its sinister and subversive character in the eyes of conservatives the moment it serves the needs of technology rather than the needs of the people. Senator Barry Goldwater was accused by many of a retarded comprehension of human needs. None could accuse him of a similar flag outside his house. Sorry. Start that over again. Senator Barry Goldwater was accused by many of a retarded comprehension of human needs. None could accuse him of a similar backwardness in electronics by which he raised and lowered the American flag outside his house. He flew his own airplane and was an enthusiastic ham radio operator. We saw in the last chapter that pro-change and anti-change attitudes failed by themselves to discriminate developed from underdeveloped persons. What was crucial was the attitude towards change. The open and undogmatic saw change as an opportunity for creating the future, discovering, choosing, suspending that choice, and choosing again. The dogmatists of the right and left saw change as the extension and triumph of present tendencies and external values. Could it be, then, that our much vaunted experts on the, quote, technotronic age, unquote, who pronounce with great assurance the extension and acceleration of existing technologies, have in reality succumbed to a kind of higher dogmatism? This will be my argument through most of this chapter. Let us run through the 10 radical conservative dichotomies presented in this chapter and ask on what side of each dichotomy the technotronic age, as described by its prophets, comes down. Just a minute here. Thank you for being patient. Okay. All right. So, man exists freely. In parentheses, radical. Verse, man is, in parentheses, or should be, the product of known or knowable scientific or moral forces that exist prior to and independently of man, a conservative. I argued in chapters 1 and 2 that a large proportion of the social sciences were working with a toolbox borrowed from the physical sciences and totally unsuited to the discovery of the developmental capacities in man. This philosophy, typified by behaviorism, regards man as shaped by a combination of stimuli, reinforcements, and intervening variables. In much of sociology, man is likewise regarded as the product of his class, income, role, culture, occupation, ethnic group, status, etc. The moment we start to frame our hypothesis in this manner, we have already chosen to regard man from the conservative end of the above dichotomy. Thereafter, we can only get conservative answers. Just as the traditional conservatives discussed in the last chapter insisted that man should be subject to external values which properly limit, control, and direct his behavior, so many social scientists, without even discussing this proposition, assume that man is shaped and controlled in this way. The topic is not even raised for discussion. It is already closed and decided. As years and years of work are piled high upon this closed issue, it becomes increasingly difficult to reopen it. To do so would cause the stack of learned papers to slide off the sealed chest onto the floor. An almost identical situation is occurring among scholars engaged in the task of predicting our futures. Buoyed up by the prestige of the physical sciences and the unbroken, accelerating march of technology into the future, they regard a very high degree of technological impact upon man as a foregone conclusion. We will be, quote, shaped culturally, psychologically, socially, and economically by the impact of technology and electronics, particularly computers and communications, end quote. In a perfect example of how to frame a conservative question in order to get a conservative answer, Zbigniew Brzezinski goes on to ask, can the individual and science coexist, or will the dynamic momentum of the latter fundamentally alter the former? Good question. One envisions a robot labeled, quote, science, stumping around the countryside like a jolly green giant, demanding changes of product and behavior from his childlike and servile employees. It is of some interest that these futurologists are an amalgam of ex-Rand employees and other deterrent theorists such as Kahn, Gorham, Metheny, Price, Hupe, Cold War experts on communism and defense like Brzezinski, Bowie, Huntington, and Poole, and end of ideological theorists like Daniel Bell. They all share a similar style, that of the, quote, value-free, end quote, empiricist who notes what is going on, quote, out there, end quote, with scholarly detachment. A new technique has been developed, and that technique, rather than the persons controlling it, will decree the shape and style of our future. However, the scene is not one of unrelieved determinism. We are not completely at the mercy of our tools. Emmanuel Metheny of the Harvard Program on Technology and Society holds that the process is one of soft determinism. While being conveyed into the future by our techniques, it is still within the power of scholars like himself to project existing trends, anticipate problems, and give the government of the time and the information with which to make these key decisions at some later date. If by 1980 we have the means to determine the sex of our children, what social problems and issues will this raise? What new institutions and values will spring up to exploit the opportunity? How will man be changed as a consequence? So just to give you all some, so that was, he was saying 1980. So this was first published in 1970, so you know. That's funny. All right, let's see. The line of questioning seems eminently reasonable. What objections could one have? The first objection is that the projection of present trends into the future represents a vote of temporary approval for such trends. Yet the trends themselves are the consequence of thousands of individual human decisions. Here I regard the decision not to change direction as a decision. By concentrating upon the technical and material aspects of the trends, the impression is fostered that these things are like stars and planets around us, so that realistic men must humbly subordinate their minds to these physical facts which exist prior to and independent of man and are little influenced by his wishful thinking. But these projections of existing trends are quite unlike the physical universe of dead objects. They are cultural, political, and social choices. Men and women have the capacity to rebel against any trend at any time, in any place, by deciding to stop it, or alter it in its direction, or persuade others to do so. The argument that if we do not fulfill some technical possibility, then the Russians will, is merely a derivative of our choice to compete in celestial races while fellow Americans go hungry. Such competition proves only how similar we are to the Russians, how incapable of rebelling against the unwritten, quote, rules of the game, and how man and women delivers himself, herself, unto the power of those from whom we are estranged. We fear the Russians, and so we have to conform to a mutual orgy of waste and weaponry. No, we don't, folks. And if the political possibilities of redirecting these trends in the next few months are infinitesimal, the strongest possible rejection of certain trends now can start to mobilize opinion. And the shared expectation that the trend whose direction you oppose will not be continued into the future may be politically essential to any success in halting or redirecting it. To averse is also true. The acceptance of a trend which is implicit in projecting it into the future, the gathering together of technical statistics, scholarly opinions, and humanistic concerns about what this trend will mean by year 2000, has the inevitable effect of strengthening the trend and making it more certain to occur. Much of the efforts of these scholars would be wasted if by the year 1975 a major social rebellion against certain trends were to succeed. Now, there is no scholar alive who, having spent a major portion of his life in assembling data which depend for their validity upon the continuance of certain normative premises, does not by his very efforts become deeply attached to these underlying norms and their conservation. The entire value of the work of certain strategic thinkers ultimately depends upon their premises being accepted as applicable to the real world. If I have labored for 10 years to simulate the Cold War as a zero-sum game or as a prisoner's dilemma game, then the growth of synergistic relationships between America and Russia vitiates every last calculation I've made. I will no longer have access to large research grants or to the ears of presidential advisors. Being human and wishing to protect my status, I am likely to, quote, see, unquote, in the human and wishing to protect my status. Being human, this is important because what I feel like this is saying is that I want to just read this over. The entire value of the work of certain strategic thinkers ultimately depends upon their premises being accepted as applicable to the real world. So if I have labored for 10 years to simulate the Cold War as a zero-sum game or as a prisoner's game, dilemma game, then the growth of synergistic relationships between America and Russia vitiates every last calculation I have made. I will no longer have access to large research grants or to the ears of presidential advisors. Being human and wishing to protect my status, I am likely to, quote, see in the international situation a continuation of the dangerous conflicts which make my simulation appear relevant. By the same process, those who now amass data on the assumed continuance of certain trends must inevitably become concerned, privately if not publicly, with conserving such trends. Their own personal competence and status as human beings is maximized only if the trends continue in a way which confirms them as prophets and qualifies them as the scholars who are best prepared to comprehend the very dilemma they predicted. But it remains to be asked, how does technology become a value and a force in itself, apart from man and his needs? This was partly answered in Chapter 1, where we saw that research technique is capable of detachment from its inventor and dissemination to other investigators, where it is validated, modified, applied, and often combined with other techniques to become a subsystem and a vast network of technology. Once separated from the creators, systems merge to take on characteristics of their own. Jacques Ellul has pointed out that technological systems have an autonomy, a tendency of self-augmentation, and a monism. Let us consider these terms. Technology has a tendency to make automatic technical choices based upon its own logistical progression. At one point, we only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to finish this up and then talk a bit about some upcoming events. So he's gone on to quote it as saying, the one best way, so runs the formula to which our technique corresponds, when everything has been measured and calculated mathematically so that the method which has been decided upon is satisfactory from the practical point of view, the method is manifestly the most efficient of all those hitherto employed or those in competition with it, then the technical movement becomes self-directing. I call this process automatism. There is no personal choice in respect to magnitude between, say, 3 and 4. 4 is greater than 3. This is a fact which has no personal reference. Technique itself, ipso facto and without indulgence or possible discussion, selects among the means to be employed. The human being is no longer, in a sense, the agent of choice. The capacity of technology to point towards its own maximal utilization is also the basis of its self-augmentation. The combination of two techniques in a form which maximizes energy output also creates the feasibility of adding a third technique, and so on. Each case, the existing nest of techniques helps to choose and control the direction of the augmentation. In this way, technical progress becomes irreversible to whatever abysmal depths of enemy and mutual destructiveness men have sunk. The whole arsenal of techniques was at their disposal. So I'm going to end that right now because I only have 10 minutes left, and I just wanted to talk about some events that are upcoming. Thank you so much for listening to me read aloud from, again, this book, Radical Man, The Process of Psychosocial Development. I'll read a little. In A Radical Man, Charles Turner has undertaken the extraordinarily ambitious task of outlining the human process of psychosocial development. His model not only organizes thousands of individual research findings from nearly 200 research studies, but it conceptualizes a large number of contemporary social and political events. For instance, student rebellion, Vietnam protests, the psychology of violence and militarism, the vogue for sensitivity training, the enemy which plagues advanced industrial society, and the destructive effect of technology upon our lives. Among his conclusions, all the more devastating for the array of evidence he marshals, is that perhaps for the first time in American history there has arisen a left-wing movement which represents, at least in part, the dynamics of human development, and that this fact terrifies and enrages millions of those whose lives have been narrowly constrained by the demands of industrial enterprises. And it goes on to talk a little bit more, but I'm not going to read much more about that. So that's that. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Fallon's Daily Toast. I go live every Friday night on Channel 3 in Somerville, here, Union Square, from 6 to 7 o'clock. Coming up at 7 o'clock, I just want everyone to know about this incredible webinar that's happening. And let me just pull it up. So tonight, if you go to Facebook, Uhuru Solidarity Movement, tonight, African Mother Warriors and the Black Power Blueprint, featuring Kalumbai Danette, president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, and Kunde Mwavita, fighter for justice for her daughter, Dominique Battle, who was brutally drowned with her two best friends by Pinellas County sheriffs in 2016. This isn't the first time I've touched on this. What happened to Dominique Battle, Ashanti Miller, and Ashanti and Lanaya is awful. It's gut-wrenching, it's gross, and it's happening so often to so many young African children around the world, around the country. Just these pigs that are targeting these young children, you know, like 13, 14, and 15-year-old young girls and boys that are being like bullied and targeted and terrorized by these pigs. These call themselves police, but they are just occupied terrorists in neighborhoods that are really just not doing any good, more harm. And I say Black community control of the police. Absolutely, without a doubt, and that needs to happen, and it needs to happen within our lifetime. So that's tonight, and you should check that out. I feel like you'd learn a lot, and it would also allow for you to better understand what's happening in neighborhoods that you don't live in. You know, we have it a whole lot different here in Union Square, Somerville, than people have it in neighborhoods down in St. Petersburg or in, you know, St. Louis. Yeah, so just, you know, try to understand, step outside of yourself and your privilege maybe, and, you know, check out what's going on elsewhere. See how you can help, whether it's even writing a letter, paying reparations, paying resources to the African People's Education and Defense Fund. See how you can help with the Black Power Blueprint. There's so much you can do. You just have to, you know, get online and do the research, or email me, or, you know, there's so many ways, so many tools. So that is happening tonight at 7 o'clock. So that's just good. It's minutes away. Go to Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Again, it is African Mother Warriors and the Black Power Blueprint, with featuring Kalumbai, who's president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, and Kunde Mwavita. And so that's going to be really powerful. And let's see what else is going on that I wanted to mention. Events. Cool. All right, what else? Oh, yes, tomorrow's the farmer's market. there's going to be all sorts of delicious, fresh food out. And, you know, that's another thing that I noticed when I was in St. Louis and in St. Petersburg. Like, there are no fresh food markets. It's all corner stores owned by petty merchants who end up also being bullies. And that touches on St. Pete 3. Before we go, I just want to touch on St. Pete 3. How can I find that? Let's see. There we go. You can find it actually on Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls. So those 3 girls, Ashante, Lanaya, Ashante, and Dominique, who were killed by Pinellas County sheriffs. Cars, you know, these are young teenage girls, 13, 14, 15-year-old girls that were chased at high speeds by like 7 cars, chased into a pond. And as the girls in the car drown into this like shallow swamp, really, you had all of these sheriffs just standing around looking. No one tried to jump in and rescue these young girls. They drowned. And it's just like you can hear the tapes. And immediately, the day after this happened, on the news and all over, there was all this slander, like that the girls were troublemakers. Like immediately after, these pigs murdered these young African girls who were, you know, beautiful and fun and vivacious and loving. These terrorists put a smear campaign on mainstream media that said that they were troublemakers with big pictures of their like. It's just awful what they're doing. That needs to be held accountable. They need to be honest. They need to be jailed. They need to pay reparations. They need to turn over their badges, and the consequences need to come to those pigs that did that to those young girls. And then not only even just 6 and 7 months later, they did it to 3 young boys, same ages, 13, 15, 16. And that ties into the CPS as a joke, you know? African children, African and indigenous children being murdered, being just ripped from their families to only be brutalized and abused more. The system needs to be overturned completely. So I just wanted to talk about something, but we've got 5 minutes left. So I'll say that there is an event coming up. It's a Tea Party event. Tea. And it's going to be at Parts and Crafts. And it is, let me just see here, where is it? Oh, cool, yes, okay. Thank you so much for your patience at home, I really appreciate it. So on May 20th, it's Sunday, it's from 2 to 4, and it is Anti-Colonial Tea Party for reparations. And that's, again, it's Sunday, May 20th, it's from 2 to 4. It's at Parts and Crafts, which is just down the road at 577 Somerville Avenue. And it's White Solidarity, TEA, which is clever, with Black Power. And join Uhuru Solidarity Movement for an anti-colonial tea party, socialize, drink tea, and learn about the colonial history of tea as we raise reparations to the Black Power Blueprint, a Black economic development program led by the African People's Socialist Party. It's $5 at the door. It includes all kinds of teas and snacks. And to go into what the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is an organization of white people that was created by and is accountable to the African People's Socialist Party. We organize in the white community for reparations to the African people. Our 3 principles of unity: we work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. African people have the right to lead their own struggle for self-determination, and we organize in the white community for reparations. 3, boom. So that's happening again May 20th. There was another event that I wanted to share with you that I thought you might be interested in at home. This one, Film Night Fundraiser, Fruitvale Station. This is Tuesday, May 29th, also at Parts and Crafts. So you've got an event May 20th, and then again an event on May 29th. And that is a Film Night Fundraiser event, screening Fruitvale Station, a day in the life of Oscar Grant, a 22-year-old African man who was shot by police in 2009. And it's again $5 at the door. It includes snacks, and all the money goes toward the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, which is one of the most inspiring projects happening in history right now. So that's it. I have 3 minutes left with you. Thank you so much for tuning in to Fallon's Daily Toast. I look forward to bringing you some really just good content in the future, and with a, just an array of great guests. So thank you again, and just keep up the good work. Ahuru.